I hobbled up the familiar driveway of 1427 Elmwood Lane in Willow Creek Estates. My body still weak from the emergency gallbladder surgery that had nearly killed me. The taxi driver set my small bag on the curb and drove off, leaving me alone with the late afternoon sun beating down on the manicured lawns that defined our HOA paradise. Or at least, what used to be paradise. My front yard, my pride and joy. The one place where I could express my graphic design creativity with colorful flower beds. Whimsical garden sculptures I designed myself. And that vibrant mural on the fence was gone. Completely erased. In its place was a sterile patch of uniform sod. A brand new swing set and sandbox. And a big sign that read Community Play Area, approved by HOA Board. My personal items? Packed haphazardly into 6 cardboard boxes stacked on the driveway, like trash waiting for pickup. Even my custom-painted front door had been repainted the HOA-approved beige. What the hell? I whispered, clutching the door frame for support as the incision in my abdomen throbbed. The front door opened, and there she was, Karen Delaney, the self-appointed queen of Willow Creek Estates, HOA president for the last 8 years. She was dressed in her usual immaculate style, pressed white blouse, pearl necklace, and that smug smile that never quite reached her eyes. Behind her hovered 2 board members, Bob Thompson and Greg Harlan, the successful types with their golf shirts and knowing nods, like they were family deciding my fate. "Oh, Sophia, you're back," Karen said in that sickly sweet voice she reserved for when she was about to twist a knife. "We didn't expect you so soon. The board thought you'd need more time to recover. Where is everything?" I managed, my voice cracking. The pain meds were wearing off, and standing was torture. "We had to act quickly." "Dear," Karen replied, gesturing to the new play area. "You see, the neighborhood needed the space. Greg's daughter is expecting her first child, and we all agreed it was time to expand the community amenities. Your artistic additions were in violation of several rules anyway. Unapproved colors, non-standard landscaping. The fines had piled up while you were away. It only made sense to repurpose while you were in the hospital. Less complicated that way." "Less complicated?" "I've been in the hospital for 8 days, fighting sepsis after the surgery, and these vultures had used the time to dismantle my life." Bob stepped forward, ever the pragmatist. "Look, Sophia, we've discussed this at the board meetings. You've been here 2 years since your career took a hit, and the HOA fees plus violations were becoming a burden. This benefits everyone. Community comes first." I stared at them, the irony burning hotter than the pain in my gut. Community comes first? Ide paid malasia duas. Attended the meetings, even helped design the neighborhood newsletter for free when they asked. But ever since I moved back into my dad's old house after the pandemic layoffs at my design firm, Karen had targeted me. My bohemian style clashed with the cookie-cutter perfection she enforced. No colored doors. No personal art. No expression that wasn't beige and boring. "You did this while I was unconscious," I said, leaning against the boxes. My legs shook. Karen's tone sharpened. "It's not personal, Sophia. We're simply enforcing the covenants. You're 28 now. Time to grow up and follow the rules like the rest of us. Bob and Greg here built successful businesses by your age. You can sleep on the community center couch until you arrange something. But the boxes need to be gone by tomorrow. The contractor is coming to finish the play area. The community center couch? After major surgery? They expected me to recover in the open, while neighbors gawked and kids played around in new swings that used to be my garden. Greg's wife, who had been lurking, chimed in with fake cheer. "The baby's due soon, and we really need this space ready. You understand, right? It's for the children. For the children." The words hit like a slap. I was part of this community, or so I thought. Growing up in this house, before Dad died, it had been different. Dad was an architect who fought to keep some creativity in the development. He understood beauty. But when cancer took him, Karen, who was just a nosy neighbor then, started her climb to power, turning Willow Creek into her personal dictatorship. I made it inside somehow, collapsing on the living room floor since the couch was now the only option. But even that felt violated. Through the window, I saw kids already playing in what was my yard. Oblivious. The same yard where Dad pushed me on swings before he got sick. The next morning, I dragged myself to the boxes. Karen appeared again in her walking outfit. The contractor is coming at 10. Box is gone by then. I turned. Why? The real reason. She sighed dramatically. Must you be dramatic? We've been patient. 2 years of you playing with designs while the rest build real value. We're restructuring for passive income, turning parts into better community assets. It's my neighborhood now. I make the decisions. But Dad left this house to me, I said quietly, with specific provisions. Something flickered in her eyes, but she brushed it off. The HOA overrides individual whims. Now move along. I texted my friend Rachel, SOS. Can I crash? Explain later. She replied instantly, with help from an Uber. I loaded the boxes. Each lift agony. Karen watched from her window. No help. Only Greg's wife pressed $50 for the ride with pity. As we drove away from Willow Creek, I promised myself, they thought they erased the problem homeowner. They had no idea they'd just freed me to fight back. Rachel opened her apartment door before I could even knock. Her face a mix of fury and concern after the frantic texts I'd sent from the Uber. Oh my God, Sophia, you look like death. They actually did this while you were in the hospital? What kind of monsters run that HOA? Her place was small, but felt like home. Plants everywhere. Mismatched furniture that screamed personality. Art on every wall. The opposite of Karen's beige nightmare. She guided me to the pull-out couch. Careful of my incision. Lie down. You're staying as long as you need. No arguments. I told her everything. The empty yard turned playground. The packed boxes. Karen's cold community-first speech. The way Bob and Greg nodded along like it was normal to strip a sick woman's home. Rachel's eyes darkened. They planned this. Fines piling up while you were unconscious? That's not enforcement. That's a setup. And the play area? Greg's daughter isn't even pregnant yet. It's an excuse to push you out and maybe flip the property for their little side deals. Over the next days, I built a routine. Mornings for healing, slow walks. Pain pills. Forcing down soup. Afternoons for work at Rachel's kitchen table. I had client deadlines. Missing them would only prove Karen right that I was the unprofessional artist. Evenings were for rage planning. I scrolled rental listings, but everything in my price range was either a dump or miles away. My savings, $3,000 I'd scraped together for a real move out, wouldn't cover deposits in this market. A week later, my incision was healing. The pain a dull ache. 2 rushed design projects landed, a restaurant rebrand and a skincare line package. The pay was decent. For the first time since the surgery, I felt like Sophia, the designer again, not Sophia, the HOA victim. Then the text started. Karen, you left some garden tools in the shed. Shall we dispose of them? No, how are you feeling? Just cold efficiency. Bob followed up. Board needs access for final playground inspection. Answer soon. Still nothing about my recovery. I was already erased. A logistical problem solved. Rachel read over my shoulder. Ignore them. Whatever's left isn't worth it. But something nagged at me. Dad had been sentimental. He used to hide little notes or sketches around the house for me to find years later. What if something of his was still there? Overlooked in Karen's purge? I needed closure. I'm going back once, I told Rachel. Just to check the shed. For Dad. She sighed but agreed to drive. One cruel word from Karen and we leave. 3 weeks after the eviction, I signed a month-to-month studio lease in Riverside Heights, an old factory conversion across town, far from Willow Creek's rules. Exposed brick, creaky floors, industrial windows. It had character. Rachel helped haul my salvage furniture from thrift stores, a $40 bed frame, a $20 desk. It has potential, I said, standing in the empty space. 500 square feet of freedom. I threw myself into work. Every time Karen's name popped into my head, I landed another client. A nonprofit website overhaul. A local startup logo suite. 16-hour days at my new desk. Rachel warned I'd burn out. "You're proving something," she said one night at 2 a.m. amid coffee cups and sketches. She was right. I was proving Karen wrong. The breakthrough hit 6 weeks later. A tech firm saw my portfolio and offered a contract position, hybrid, good pay. I bought a proper chair, business cards. My little studio became a real office. That's when dads will started haunting me again. Karen had always been vague about the house details. As a grieving 10-year-old, I hadn't questioned it. Now, with distance, things didn't add up. I called Tom Morrison, Dad's old business partner. Sophia, how's the design work? His voice warmed. When I asked about the will, he grew careful. Your father was specific. He set up trusts for you kids with the house, shares kicking in at 30 or upon your mother's passing. But since she's gone, wait, no, your mom passed years ago too. He protected you especially because he knew you'd go creative. And he added clauses so no HOA could override without your consent on major changes. You should own a solid stake. My heart pounded. You're saying I own part of that property? If the will was followed. Yes. And any major alteration, like turning your yard into a playground, needs your signature. Karen knows this. Get the probate copy at the county clerk. I drove there the next day. The folder cost 50 cents a page. 23 pages that changed everything. Dad hadn't just left me the house. He'd built in protections against exactly this kind of power grab. Trust with money I should have received at 25. A no sale or encumbrance clause without all beneficiaries' consent. Karen had been sitting on my trust, collecting basement rental income from the community shed she'd repurposed, and pushing through improvements without my say. I nearly laughed in the parking lot. They thought they'd erased the artistic troublemaker. They had no idea I was about to become their worst nightmare. I called Gerald Hoffman, the lawyer named in Dad's will, now in his 70s but still sharp. "Sophia Lane," he said when I introduced myself. "I wondered when you'd surface. Your father was a good man. He'd be furious at what Karen's done." He reviewed the documents. Multiple breaches. She was trustee. She had to release your trust at 25. She didn't. She collected rent from the community shed that legally belongs to you. About $16,000 over 5 years. And that playground? Any major property change required your signature. She forged the appearance of board consensus while you were hospitalized. That's fiduciary fraud. "What do I do?" I asked, voice steady for the first time in weeks. "Demand letter first. Immediate trust access. Acknowledgement of your ownership stake. Back rent. And halt on any further improvements. If she stalls, we sue. And we record everything." That evening, Greg texted, "Hey, board needs you to sign some routine HOA paperwork for tax purposes. Can you stop by?" I screenshot it and sent it to Gerald. "Perfect," he replied. "She's fishing for your signature to cover her tracks. Don't answer. Let me handle it." 2 days later, Karen left a voicemail. "Sophia, this is Karen Delaney. We need to discuss community, business, documents for the estate taxes. Call me back immediately." Still lying. Still manipulating. Gerald sent the demand letter that afternoon, copied to the entire board. My phone exploded. "Bob, what the hell is this?" "Greg, this is insane. Karen, How dare you involve lawyers in neighborhood matters? I smiled alone in my studio, surrounded by the life I'd rebuilt. They'd counted on my illness and ignorance. They'd forgotten I was my father's daughter. The meeting was set for Tuesday at Gerald's office. Karen arrived with Bob and Greg flanking her like bodyguards, all in business best. I wore a sharp new blazer bought with my first tech contract paycheck. Armor. This is ridiculous, Karen started before sitting. Suing your own community president? Your father would be ashamed. My father made sure I'd be protected. I replied calmly. You're the one who violated his wishes. Gerald laid out the facts methodically. The will, the trusts, the consent clause. Karen's face paled with each page. There must be some misunderstanding, she said, voice losing its authority. I was protecting the neighborhood's interests. Sophia wasn't ready. She was 25, Gerald interrupted. The age your father designated. You had no right to withhold her inheritance. Greg tried a different tack. Look, we can work this out. The playground conversion could benefit everyone. You get your share of any future value. I already own my share, I said, and you're trying to repurpose it without my knowledge. That's not community spirit. Gerald pulled another document. Interestingly, Mrs. Delaney, you've been collecting rent from the community shed for 5 years. That income legally belongs to Sophia. Approximately $16,000 owed. Silence. I wasn't done. The night before, with Gerald's guidance, I prepare my proposal. I have an offer, I said, sliding my folder across. I'm willing to negotiate, but only if we do it my way. Immediate trust release. Full ownership acknowledgement. Back rent paid in 30 days. And unanimous consent for any future decisions. Or I can call Richardson Development tomorrow and offer them my stake directly. Greg's face went red. Richardson? They're our biggest competitor. They're offering 20% above market for properties in this neighborhood, I said. I'd done my research. Richardson had been trying to break into Willow Creek for years. They love properties with multiple stakeholders because it gave leverage. You wouldn't, Karen hissed. I would, unless we handle this properly. Gerald smiled coldly. My client is being generous. She could pursue criminal charges for fraud. Instead, she's offering business. The negotiation lasted 3 hours. Karen fought every point, pearl clutching and calling it blackmail. But faced with public lawsuit and Richardson swooping in, she caved. The agreement. Trust funds released immediately. $93,000 sitting untouched for years. Full recognition of my stake. Back rent paid. And any future changes needing all 4 stakeholders' approval. As we signed, Karen couldn't resist one last jab. You may have won this round, but you've lost your place in the community. No, I said, meeting her eyes. I lost my place the day you erased my home while I was recovering from surgery. This is just business, something you always said I didn't understand. Greg slammed his portfolio shut. Richardson? Really? You know what this could do to our reputation? The same thing you did to mine every time you call me the neighborhood eyesore at meetings. Yes, I know exactly. They left without another word. Gerald and I sat in the quiet. You played that perfectly, he said. Your father would be proud. I'm not done, I replied, pulling out my phone. Greg didn't know it yet, but Richardson had actually contacted me last week. They wanted me as marketing consultant for properties in the area, especially mine. I spent the next month sharpening my portfolio specifically for Richardson. Clean, modern designs that spoke to young professionals and empty nesters. Exactly their target. When I walked into their conference room, I wasn't the broken woman who'd been thrown out of her own yard. I was a professional with leverage. James Richardson himself led the meeting. Your work is impressive. MS. Lane. But I have to ask. You share a last name with the Willow Creek HOA folks. Any relation? Indirectly, I said simply. Is that a problem? He smiled. Not for us. Competition is healthy. Your designs are exactly what we've been missing. The contract they offered was substantial, 6 months with potential permanence. But the real opportunity came when James mentioned their latest target. We're looking at 1427 Elmwood Lane. The owners seemed conflicted about selling. I'm one of those owners, I said. I hold a solid stake. The room went silent. Then James leaned back, eyes sharp with interest. Well, this is unexpected. Are you looking to sell? I'm looking for the right opportunity. The board wants to keep expanding playgrounds and uniform lawns. I think the lot could be something more. Large enough for subdivision into 4 modern homes without destroying neighborhood character. Open spaces, big windows, integration with nature, just like my dad always envisioned. You've thought about this. I've had time. We spent 2 hours sketching possibilities. By the end, James made an offer that made my trust fund look like pocket change. More importantly, he offered me the lead designer role for the project if I could deliver the property. Carter Gardens, named in Dad's honor. That evening I called a board meeting, neutral ground at a coffee shop. Not the community center I'd been banished from. Richardson Development wants to buy the entire property, I announced without preamble. Their offer is 40% above market. Cash. Quick close. Karen's face cycled through rage and calculation. We're not selling to Richardson. Then we're not selling at all, I said. I won't approve any other buyer. And without my signature, you're stuck with rising taxes and a property you can't monetize. Oh, and they've agreed to name the development after my father, preserving his legacy. That stopped them cold. The silence stretched. Finally, Greg asked quietly, "How much?" I slid the offer across. Karen gasped. Bob's eyes widened. Even Karen looked impressed despite herself. "This is significant," Bob admitted. "It's enough for all of us to move forward," I said. "Karen, you could buy that Florida condo you've been bragging about." Bob, invest in your hedge fund dreams. Greg, expand without needing more investors. And me, I'll be designing the new development, permanent creative director position with Richardson. Karen's voice turned bitter. This is revenge. No, this is value. And something you always preached, smart business. It took a week of tense negotiations, but they agreed. The house I'd been erased from would become Carter Gardens for beautiful modern homes, each incorporating Dad's favorite elements: large windows, open plans, nature integration. The largest would have a studio space perfect for an artist. The closing was surreal. We sat at a long table signing papers that dissolved our last connection. When Richardson's check was distributed, I became genuinely financially secure for the first time. As we left, Karen stopped me. "Are you happy now? You've destroyed the community. I've built something," I corrected, "from nothing after you tried to erase me." She walked away without another word. Bob gave a slight nod, the closest to respect I'd ever gotten. Greg just shook his head and muttered about Richardson getting a steal. 6 months later, I stood at the construction site of Carter Gardens. For homes were rising where my old yard had stood. Rachel stood beside me. "You did it. You actually won." I survived, I corrected. And then I thrived. My phone buzzed, a text from Greg's wife. "Saw the article about Carter Gardens. The designs are beautiful. Your father would be proud." Maybe. Or maybe he'd be sad it came to this. But one thing was certain, he'd prepared me. The trust, the ownership stake, the specific language in his will. He'd known a Karen might try to push me out, and he'd given me the tools to push back harder. I deleted the text. Some bridges, once burned, are better left as ashes. The Richardson job became permanent. My studio became a 2-bedroom in a better building. My portfolio grew. Somewhere in Willow Creek. The old board lived their lives without me. Richer in money, but poorer for losing the one homeowner who only wanted to be left alone to create. They needed the space. Karen had said that day. Well, now they had all the space in the world. And so did I. The final chapter felt almost poetic. Construction at Carter Gardens moved fast. I walked the site daily, tweaking designs with the crew, making sure every window caught the light the way Dad would have loved. The neighborhood gossips from Willow Creek drove by slowly, pretending to be casual. Karen was nowhere to be seen. Word was she'd quietly resigned from the HOA presidency after the sale became public. Something about personal reasons and focusing on family. Translation: the other homeowners finally saw the receipts of her pocketed shed rent and the forged board minutes Gerald had leaked in the settlement. One afternoon, a former neighbor stopped me at the fence. "Sophia, oh, we had no idea. Karen made it sound like you were the one breaking all the rules on purpose. We just followed her lead." I smiled thinly. That's how Karens stay in power, by making everyone else afraid to question the rules. She nodded, embarrassed. "The new homes look amazing. Nothing like the old beige prison. Maybe we needed this shake-up. Maybe. But I wasn't sticking around to find out. My new role at Richardson had me designing 3 more communities across the county, all with the same philosophy: rules that serve people, not the other way around. No more pearl-clutching presidents deciding what color your flowers could be. Rachel and I celebrated the final walkthrough with champagne on the roof of my new apartment. To the woman who turned an HOA nightmare into a career glow-up, she toasted. I clinked glasses. To Dad, who knew exactly what I'd need even after he was gone. Later that night, my phone lit up with a local news alert. Former Willow Creek HOA president faces ethics probe after community sale. Apparently, some of the back rent and hidden fines had been traced straight to Karen's personal account. The board was scrambling to rewrite covenants so no single person could ever wield that kind of unchecked power again. I didn't gloat. Okay, maybe a little. But mostly I felt quiet satisfaction. Not revenge, justice. The same justice Dad had tried to bake into that well all those years ago. 6 months after closing, I stood inside the finished studio home at Carter Gardens, the one I designed with the big north-facing windows perfect for an artist workspace. I'd kept it for myself as part of the deal. No HOA, no covenants. Just mine. Through the glass, I watched kids playing in the new communal green space. Not a sterile playground forced on one person's yard, but a thoughtful park everyone had voted on together. The irony wasn't lost on me. They finally got their community space. It just cost them the old regime. My phone buzzed again, another text from an old board member. "Saw your name on the new project in Oak Ridge. Impressive. Would you ever consult for us on updating our rules?" I laughed out loud, deleted the message without replying. Some lessons are learned the hard way. And some Karens finally learn that when you try to erase someone's home while they're fighting for their life in a hospital bed, that someone might just come back and redesign the entire neighborhood without you in it. I poured another glass of champagne, raised it toward the sky where I imagined Dad was watching, and whispered, "We did it." Then I sat down at my drafting table, opened a fresh sketchbook, and started drawing the next community, one where creativity wasn't a violation, where rules served beauty instead of burying it, and where no Karen would ever again decide whose home was worth keeping. Because in the end, the real community isn't the one with perfect beige lawns. It's the one that makes space for every single story, even the ones that start with cardboard boxes on a driveway and end with an entirely new skyline. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop it in the comments so we can connect. If you've ever battled an HOA Karen, tell me your craziest rule story below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next takedown. What would you have done if your home was erased while you were in a hospital? Let's talk.